Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say hi to you all.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Chair Scott is not able to join us today, so I will be chairing today's meeting, and we'll go ahead and call us to order for our special meeting or rescheduled regular meeting of the SolTrans Board at 3:33 p.m. And I will ask, actually, this one goes in a different order than I'm used to. We will go ahead into the Pledge of Allegiance if everyone would please stand and join us for the pledge. All right, thank you all. That's going to bring us to our second item, which is confirming our quorum, which we do have.
We do have a
Do we
quorum.
need to do a formal roll call, or are we all right?
We're good.
All right. With that, I'll just check and make sure if there are board members who have statements of conflict for today's meeting. Seeing none, I will move us to item 3, which is the approval of the agenda. And I'll see if anyone has lights or comments, and seeing none, I will go ahead and approve or move the approval of our agenda. And I believe we need a second.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, agenda is approved. That is going to bring us to item 4, which is our public comment. So anyone wishing to address the SolTrans Board on matters not on today's agenda, but within the subject matter jurisdiction of SolTrans, is welcome to comment this afternoon by signing up at the kiosk in the back or raising your hand online. SolTrans Board welcomes public comment on matters within our jurisdiction and authority, but strongly denounces hate speech, obscenity, and disruptive behavior in meetings. Disruptive individuals will be admonished and removed from meeting pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.95, and will ask for members of the public to ensure their remarks are within the jurisdiction of this board and avoid hateful or obscene comments. So we've started a sign-up clock for folks online. Do we have any commenters in person at this time? It doesn't appear that we do.
Through the chair, yeah, no members of the public have currently signed up in person, nor have any members signed up online. We do have about a
Alright.
minute left on that timer.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and give the members of the public online a little bit more time if they'd like to raise their hand. And while we give that opportunity, I will move us to item 5, which is our executive director's report. I'll turn it over to our executive director, and then after her report, we'll check and verify that there are no public commenters.
Thank you, Mayor. Next slide, Manny. I'm happy to report our youth ridership pilot continues to grow, with youth ridership increasing and not following seasonal ridership trends. You could see in December and January when we typically see a drop because of holidays and school being out, but both months had significant growth. Next slide. We kicked off 26 with a football-themed January 2nd Friday. On the far right picture, which is hard to see, we have operators playing catch with the kids before the event. Next slide. I want to welcome here today our newest public committee member representing Benicia, Rachel Bagwat. She is a Benicia resident who has worked in nonprofit and government affairs for 15 years. She's a strong advocate for high-quality transportation, and this is the first time in the recent history where the PAC has a full membership. Next slide. This is something I want to talk about. It has to do kind of with what we've heard at the Solano Express subcommittee meeting at STA. STA often talks about their hourly cost being $125. But what they're leaving out, the information they give you is incomplete. So when you look at standard accounting practices, you need to look at fully allocated costs. So the fully allocated costs look at utilities, rent, IT, general admin. So we are ensuring that no department unfairly absorbs costs that should be shared amongst the agency. So when we compare the STA van pool cost to our variable hourly rate, we're not that far off, you could see. But what you're missing in STA is the items on the right. So again, we're not comparing apples to apples here. So I just want you to be aware when STA talks about their hourly costs, they're leaving a lot out. And that really concludes my report.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have any board of directors comments? And I'm seeing Mayor Young. Go ahead.
Well, two things. I'd like to, first of all, welcome and thank Rachel for her willingness to serve. She also serves on a number of city commissions as well. And on the chart you just showed about our overhead costs, I think it would be a good idea to sort of keep that on hand. So anytime it comes up at an STA board meeting, you can pull that out and talk about it in specific. Thanks.
Councilmember Gordon.
Yes, I'd like to welcome Rachel too. That is a great thing to see that we have a complete board. So I appreciate all the work that went into that advocacy. Thank you.
All right. So with that, I'll thank you, Beth, for putting that together on after 2 days, a discussion on Monday, and it's good to see that comparison finally made because I feel like between the cost of the van pool and the Solano Express buses, you can expect the cost to be a little bit more for a larger bus, but we were not comparing cost per revenue hour that included the same categories for both. So now having this chart, I think it'll be informative for the STA board. So thank you for putting that together. With that, I will just double check and see if we have anyone commenting online, and seeing none, we will close our public comment and that item. Item 6 is proclamations and presentations. We have none for this meeting, so we'll go ahead on to our consent calendar, which is item 7. These are routine items adopted in one motion unless a request for removal or explanation is received from a board member. And I will ask the board if anyone has requests to pull items from consent, and I see Mayor Young. Go ahead.
I'd like to pull 7E.
All right, we're going to pull 7E and make that 7.1. And I'm not seeing any other requests. Do we have any public commenters wishing to comment on consent items before we ask for a motion for approval for the rest of the consent calendar?
No speakers at this time, Mayor.
All right. With that, do we have a motion to approve the remaining consent items minus the one that was pulled? That's going to be 7.1. What was that, E?
E,
Said
yeah.
item E.
I'll move the item.
All right, well, we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second? Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, consent calendar passes with item 7E becoming 7.1, and we will go ahead in that item. I see, I don't know, Mayor Young, if you want to ask questions, and I believe we have a staff
Sure.
member ready to answer them.
Yeah, my general comment is a contract of this size probably deserves some discussion, or at least a little broader understanding on the board's part. It is for more than $250,000. Can you talk a little bit about whether, did we go through an RFP process? Did we have multiple bidders?
Yes, we have to go through the RFP, and we had a committee decide who to go with.
How many bidders did we have?
We had, I believe, 11.
11 bidders, okay. And this was, if not the low bid, it was deemed the most responsive?
It was responsive, but also they understood what we were looking for, and it was the most affordable that actually hit it right on the target of what our needs are.
And for the benefit of those who weren't able to read the report, including the people online, can you just sort of summarize what the purpose of this contract and project is?
Sorry. So the purpose of the contract is we're in need of software to manage our assets. SolTrans is responsible for reporting to the FTA and MTC and various other organizations about different assets as far as facilities, maintenance assets, our buses, and we have been maintaining them basically with Excel sheets, and we've outgrown that by far. And to ensure that we have our assets accounted for and in good repair, we need something to track them.
Okay, and this is, we have sufficient funds in our existing budget. You're not asking for new money?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you. I read the report. I think it was well executed, and I thank you so much for being professional and making sure you're being transparent.
Thank you.
All right, I'm not seeing any other comments, so do we have a motion to approve this item?
I'll move it.
All right, do we have a second? I'll second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Just to be safe, any abstentions or noes? I'm seeing none. So it is approved, and we will move to our regular calendar action items. And our first item, 8A, is our SolTrans ADA paratransit no-show policy proposed revision public hearing. And because this is a public hearing that was noticed, we will hear the staff presentation first. I'll open the public hearing. We'll give the board a chance to ask any clarifying questions, take public comment, then we'll close the hearing, take any final comments before our vote. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to the presentation.
Thank you. Next slide. So good afternoon. In January, the board opened a public comment period and authorized staff to begin gathering feedback on the proposed revision of the SolTrans ADA paratransit no-show policy. And the slide you're looking at shows the outreach that was conducted. Next slide, please. Based on the feedback received, a clarification was made to the policy's penalties section, and most of the feedback we got was either positive or neutral, and because of that, staff is asking, and we didn't get a lot, even with a robust outreach period, but we're asking the board to complete the public hearing and then approve the revised no-show policy. And that's it.
All right, thank you very much. So clarifying questions from the board, and then we'll take public comment. And I see Mayor Young and then Councilmember Gordon.
Could you put that slide back up of the outreach efforts? So, no, the other one. Yeah. So reducing the cancellation window from 2 hours to 1 hour seems to be in favor of the riders, right? So they can.
Correct.
And it doesn't provide any special difficulties for the drivers?
No, it's actually more of a standard policy these days with the new softwares and things that are out there to just go to 1 hour. Some bigger agencies even do it cancellation 15 minutes. We're not quite there, but 1 hour is doable.
Okay. And the difference between calculating penalties every 30 days versus a calendar month, so that's if somebody cancels in the middle of a month, we look forward 30 days from that date.
Yes.
And what is the penalty and how many cancellations are allowed?
You can, if you cancel in advance, you have no penalties.
Okay.
You only get a penalty if you don't cancel within an hour unless it's beyond your control. And then it's not counted against the rider. The policy is designed to mitigate egregious misuse, not to punish. And so the idea is that you get a note every single time there's a no-show. Then if they continue to accumulate, you'd get a warning letter. And then after that, you'd have a suspension. But it rarely happens. I think in my history in transit since 2008, I've only seen a suspension happen one time.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you so very much. I was so happy too that you all had a robust conversation with PAC, and they were in favor definitely of the 1 hour versus the 2 hours. I did like and appreciate that they like the idea of maybe in the future having, with today's technology, having where they can get a text, do you still want this ride? Text, hit yes or no. So hopefully we can move into the future for that, because I do have something similar to that, and I think that'd be something that we want to look into. And that also saves the driver time. So I did hear that, and I'm so happy to hear that. But thank you again for once again being transparent, because sometimes a lot can happen, even that last 30 minutes. You know what I mean? So thank you again.
Mayor Hernandez.
Yes, thank you. I do want to just bring to the board an update that I received last time that we addressed this particular question. I asked, is there any way that we can have a text messaging system that kind of alerts? And so I did receive an email that was forwarded on behalf of Angel Anderson, who's the Program Assistant Deputy Clerk, yourself. And then, so in response to the request to investigate the use of text messaging for paratransit trip notifications, the agency is procuring a new paratransit scheduling, dispatching, and reporting system. Available rider features and functions will be reviewed and determined during that process. So staff will ensure that the information for paratransit riders is accurate, and all of those tools are included in that procurement process, and we'll see what's available in the systems out there. So the procurement opportunities are advertised and are public on the agency's website. So I just wanted to let the rest of the board be aware that I did receive a response and a follow-up to that particular question. I think it's timely just to note it as well here.
Thank you. Yes. I'm not sure what can be said about the procurement process because of certain restrictions, because I'm new with that part of thing, but definitely looking into the text or phone call abilities. We want that, of course, if we can afford it.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any more questions from the board, so why don't we see if there are any public commenters? Are there any in person? Manny, are there any online?
Through the mayor, through the chair, no members of the public signed up for this item at this time.
All right. Thank you very much. So in that case, we will go ahead and close the public hearing. And if there are no more questions from the board, I will see if there is a motion to approve the recommendation, which is to authorize staff to adopt the revised ADA paratransit no-show policy. All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. And why don't we go ahead and take a voice vote on this one since it's action item?
All in favor?
No.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
All right. Thank you very much. So that is going to bring us to our non-action / informational items, and we have a few discussion items this evening, the first of which is 9A, our fiscal year 25-26 operating revenue and expenses through December 31st, 2025, and I will turn it over to Christina Botsford for presentation.
Good afternoon. I'm here presenting the quarterly update. Sorry, this slideshow's for the next one. So I don't have a slideshow for this one. But we have the quarterly budget update. We're under budget about 4%. It's about $500,000, a lot closer than we've probably been in the past. We're seeing things come in the way we expected.
Hold on one second.
Christina,
Mayor.
is there a chart that you're looking at that we're not seeing?
No. I mean,
Oh.
in your packet is on page 95, and
Okay.
if you got the same page as I do, in 97. 95 is the
So
report.
you're referencing the agenda packet
Yeah.
on this item?
We don't have
Okay.
a script, we don't have a slide.
No.
All right, will you maybe start over again?
Sure.
And get a little closer to the mic.
Absolutely. Okay. Quarterly update for the first half of the year. We're under budget by about $500,000, which is about 4% of the budget. Primarily, it's the transit contract has come under budget because of liquidated damages assessed of the contractor. That's significantly lower than it was last year, which is good because they're moving in the right direction. And we do not expect liquidated damages to be a significant number in the next half of the year as well. We're also under budget on fuel, mainly because our electrical infrastructure, we had a small setback, and we've been using a backup generator to fuel our buses. However, that is just about online at this point, and we will start seeing electric fuel for the second half of the year, and we'll be following that closely with PG&E. From what I understand, we start off with a particular rate, and then in 6 months, they sit down with us and we assess our rate to make sure we're getting the best possible rates and we're charging at the right times. So we're going to monitor that. And then the last thing is we had a vacancy a 6-month vacancy in our staffing, and we also had a couple of people out on leave. So we're about $100,000 under budget on salaries and benefits that we obviously, that'll be just a budget savings for the year. For operating revenue, we had high hopes that a lot of things were going to do better this year, that Clipper was going to be working better, which it is, and that we were going to get riders to start paying their fare after years of probably not. And so we're under budget on operating revenue. However, we are $150,000 higher than we were at this point last year. So we definitely are making significant progress in people paying their fare and with correcting some of the issues we had been having with Clipper. I'm seeing our contract staff is putting in very few Clipper tickets for corrections. And anecdotally, the drivers say that it appears to be working and charging the correct fare. So we're happy about that. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, seeing some lights, I'll start with Mayor Young.
Thanks, Christina. So a couple things. Clearly, our fuel costs are going to go up, perhaps substantially. Gas prices are going to go way
Maybe.
up for everybody. And I don't know where we are in terms of that line item, but you mentioned that there was a vacancy. I don't know, is there plans to fill that, or can we leave it vacant in order to try to offset some of these increased fuel costs?
Oh, we did fill the vacancy with a temporary employee, so January 1st.
Oh, okay.
So we did, we had to fill that. But the 100,000 will be budget savings for the year, so we could certainly shift that budget savings to cover any overages on fuel. I'm not as worried about electric. Right now, we only have, the original 4 BYD buses that we had. Half the time they're not working, they're sort of not being charged. The 5 new Gillig buses we do have on site, so there was only 5 buses. The next 7 are arriving in the next month, so we don't have, it's not like we're going to have the full fleet for this year, but we'll have enough data this year to be able to do a pretty good estimate for the future for next year's budget. Also, we have a consultant on staff when we bought these electric buses to look at the charging needs, the power needs, and they feel pretty confident that that overall we're going to end up having cost savings. The maintenance should be a lot less on the buses, et cetera. So we'll definitely be something we'll be watching.
So I thought the 7 additional electric buses, that we were sort of putting a hold on those. You said they're arriving next month, but the
There's
feds pulled the
14.
money.
There's 14 buses we ordered 2 years ago. So the first 7 is what we have money for on hand from our formula funds.
okay.
So those are the ones have been built and are being delivered. The other 7 is funded with the competitive FTA grant that FTA still has not obligated. Same with the other 2 Bay Area agencies that have the exact same grant. Nobody's heard anything.
Right, so there's no penalty if we don't follow through on this, because clearly, if we don't have the money, we can't buy it.
No. Yeah, Gillig's very aware.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you mentioned Clipper cards before. So we've got this outstanding balance that I think we have still not been able to collect of $800,000 that is still in dispute with MTC, and they were waiting on us to provide them data on trying to collect that money. Is it still on our side to actually give them enough money, data?
That's a tough one. There were issues with the original Clipper system, and then there was when they
2.0.
transferred us to the new equipment for Clipper 2, but we're still under the old Clipper 1 business rules. That's where we had a lot of challenges. Now that they've switched over to the Clipper 2 business rules, things are a lot better. A lot of the estimated lost revenue is us making our best estimate based on past history from before they introduced that new equipment. It's very, very hard to give hard data to quantify what the lost revenue is, because the machine didn't work. You just don't know.
But we do have data showing how many people got on the bus.
We do, but
To
not
use a
everybody
Clipper
uses
card.
Clipper is the problem, right?
What's that?
You know, some people pay cash, some people use the Token Transit app.
So we don't know how many of those who got on the bus actually used a Clipper card that we never collected on.
Yeah, if it doesn't register that the machine's completely down, it doesn't even register the tap, we have no way of knowing how many people actually rode for free. It's really our best guess because of past ridership and fare revenue. All I know is our average fare revenue was a lot higher prior to the new Clipper equipment being installed, and also pre-pandemic. It's also hard to know how much of the lost revenue is just pandemic-related habits that people developed of not paying their fare. So it's really going to be impossible for us to give MTC and Clipper a hard number of this is really our lost revenue. There are a couple metrics where we do know, absolutely know. Like on Solano Express, we know when it defaulted to the local fare and it didn't charge people the correct fare. That we do know. We did get reimbursed for a pretty good chunk of that, but we haven't pursued going after them for anything else. My understanding is there is no money there.
And the problem was with our equipment on the buses, was not reading the new cards properly?
Yeah, I think there was a myriad of issues. It's when they installed the new equipment. It's either there was our CAT AVL system tells Clipper which route we're on, and so which fare to charge, and it either wasn't getting the message, or Clipper lost cellular connection and it wasn't working, or Clipper took too long to download after the bus was shut off when the driver was on a break. They turned the bus back on, and then the system doesn't download fast enough and people are getting on before Clipper has set. There was a myriad of reasons. That's the problem.
And are there multiple transit agencies who had the same problem?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Though I'm not sure if they were all paying attention as closely as we were. And not everybody has the exact same problems because we're all set up a little differently. There was about 3 or 4 different ways you could set up Clipper 2 in your equipment and how it connected with your other systems. And I think we had a particular problem with the way we set up ours. I mean, it's not our problem. It's just that their system didn't handle it very well. But a lot of that seems to be resolved now. So I don't know what Clipper's done on their end, but I know they're under a lot of pressure.
So we shouldn't expect any more money, it sounds like.
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Largasmata.
Is this thing? Oh, thank you. This is new hardware for me. It's very fancy compared to Benicia. Looking for 2 clarifying questions. I will pick up where the mayor left off, and that was regarding the lost revenue. At first, I thought when you said riders will start paying, so this isn't fare avoidance as much as it was like this technical disconnect between our system and the Clipper network and just the transfer of that information, or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination of both in terms of why our fare revenue isn't where we were hoping it would be at this point. It's a combination of having to retrain or, really encourage riders to pay their fare. And we know we weren't the only ones. We saw San Francisco Muni had to do a whole campaign to encourage people to pay their fare.
People just get on their buses. But
Yeah,
that's a
they
whole
just get
story.
on and
Yeah.
they just won't pay. And the drivers, they're encouraged to, tell people this is the fare, but they're not going to get into an altercation with any rider.
And does staff have a guess of how much outstanding revenue there will be once the riders get better at paying their share?
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at some
Okay.
more analysis on what our average fare we collected pre-pandemic and pre all this Clipper changes versus what we're seeing now as an average fare. It's something I could probably bring next month when I bring the 10-year forecast.
Okay.
Or actually, I guess that's in 2 weeks.
And then,
So if it's not in 2 weeks, it'll be next month when I bring the draft budget.
I'm going to guess, because if that number isn't top of mind, in the end, it's probably like budget dust when you're counting revenue. It's not
Yeah.
like there's $500,000 of money that's going to hit the system because training and protocol has been put in place and riders are,
Yeah,
doing the
I
right
want to
thing.
say our average fare per rider was something like $250-ish before the pandemic. So that counts, obviously, full adult riders, youth riders. But now youth is free, so you've got that kind of mixed in, adjusting your averages, as well as the reduced fare where people pay the half fare if you're senior disabled. And now our average fares are well under $2. So.
And then the second thing was, and I don't want to restart a conversation I'm sure this board has addressed and moved on from, but I'm just kind of curious. Liquidated damages assessed sounds really scary. What does that mean
What's that mean?
in plain terms from those that are kind of reconnecting to this? Yeah.
Last year, we were missing a lot of trips. The contractor, there was driver shortages or whatever reason, they were not meeting service. On-time performance was not great. And there were a lot of issues with equipment on buses not working, head signs not working right, things like that. And we finally utilized the tools we had within the contract to assess liquidated damages for each instance. And when those became significant enough, that's when the contractor's corporate office really got involved and helped the current team, really start looking at, and actually we changed a lot of the current team. So a lot of the management is newer. They've been only here about a year now. And so they came in and cleaned up a lot. So we're not missing trips like we were before. Our on-time performance has gotten a lot better. But it was something we had to do to, kind of get things moving in the direction that really needed to happen.
Accountability is a tool.
Exactly.
And staff used it. So
Yes.
it's good to read. Thank you.
All right, not seeing any other comments from the board, so thank you so much for that presentation. Just double checking, do we have any public commenters? I can't remember if I took it on this item, so we don't have any at this time. With that, we will move on to 9B. Since these are informational items, we don't need to vote. So we'll go ahead and move to 9B, revenue forecast. Very much building off of the conversation we were just having, especially about Clipper.
Hey again. In the next meeting, which is now in 2 weeks, we present our 10-year forecast. And I thought that maybe diving into what I've been looking at for potential revenue for the next year would be helpful for this board to hear it more than one time, because next meeting it'll be a lot of information. So our operating funding sources, so just for local and paratransit, because Solano Express kind of has its own funding plan, just to refresh your memory on how we fund our local and our paratransit service. We get federal FTA 5307 formula funds. So every year we're allocated a certain amount of federal formula funds. Vallejo is its own urbanized area, so we don't compete for our money in our area. This is all of our money. Oh, sorry about that. The current federal funding bill ends in September, so we'll have to wait and see what happens in Washington on how they plan on funding transportation. For state and local revenues, we get our TDA money. That's the county sales tax. So it's a quarter cent of each of the sales tax that comes back to our county and to Vallejo and Benicia specifically, and that's funding we have. It's estimated to be flat for next year. That's what MTC has told us. State LC top funds. This is from what used to be called cap and trade and is now called cap and invest funds. It's a small portion of state money that's for reducing greenhouse gases. We can program that money for capital or operating, and we have chosen, which is actually the next bullet point, to use it for the next 2 years, this year and next year, to backfill the lost revenue for the Youth Ride Free pilot, so that to make us whole on fare revenue. We also get state transit assistance funds revenue-based. So this money comes directly to SolTrans. This is not passed through STA. It's a very small amount. It's like $100,000. We apply it to paratransit services. And then obviously we have our fare revenue. So you can see that's pretty much it. I mean, really, it's the federal formula funds, and because we're a small urbanized area, we're allowed to use it for operations. Large urbanized areas cannot use it for operations or preventative maintenance, but we do use that money for operations. And just another reminder, we're the only county in the Bay Area that does not have a sales tax measure, so we don't have any other sales tax revenue to help fund our operations. Next slide is capital funding sources. Again, we have our federal 5307 formula funds. It has to be programmed in advance. So we work with MTC in a very lengthy programming process to determine how much of our federal money we're going to spend on capital, how much are we going to use on operations. It supports our fleet and our facilities. Also, our TDA sales tax dollars that can be used as matching for capital projects. That's a flexible source of funds, again, used for operations and capital. It makes doing our budget very challenging to balance the needs of maintaining funding for our ongoing operations, but making sure we set enough aside for capital, ongoing capital needs. We get a very, very small amount of state of good repair funds. It's like $60,000. So, we use it for smaller projects, replacing cameras, things like that. We get local AB 664 toll credits, and the amount that we receive depends on how much federal money we program towards capital projects. So if I use more of my federal money for operations, I get less of this. If I use more on capital, I get more of this. But it ranges from 0 to 200,000 a year. And it helps, every little bit helps. And then state LC top funds, again, generally in the past we have used it for capital projects. We're just using it for operations now. But it has to reduce greenhouse gases and fit within their program guidelines. What is not on here is beyond this, we have to go out for competitive grants to fund capital projects. So that's something we're always looking for. Okay, Solano Express operating funds. There's 4 buckets of funding here. Well, it's really 3 buckets. It's state transit assistance funds. This is the population-based portion. So that flows to STA to determine how that money is going to be spent. We have our TDA dollars. So Vallejo and Benicia, SolTrans, we pitch in our portion. Our funding partners pitch in their portion. And then we've got RM2 and RM3 bridge tolls. Okay. So one thing I did want to bring up is what you have, many of you have seen STA's done a forecast on the state transit assistance funds. And because a big chunk of that money is used to fund Solano Express, the forecast that they've been presenting is funding Solano Express this year and next year with past STAF money that was in reserve. It's none of the current year allocation. So I'm not sure where STA is spending all of the current year STAF population-based funds. And then going forward, from FY28 forward, what their forecast is showing is that the State Transit Assistance Fund's pot of money we know is declining. They're carving off $3 million for Solano mobility programs and saying that Solano Express, this is all we have left to give you. I know we've had multiple subcommittee meetings about this after this point, and so I believe that we're starting to now we're looking at all of the state transit assistance funds and what's the best way to spend them. I just wanted to make sure that the forecast numbers that we've seen in the past from STA, this is their current, there was their assumptions. And I think that's going to start changing. I think STA realizes we're going to have to look at all of the programs funded with this money to determine if we want to push more money towards Solano Express or, what are we going to do in the future? And then just wanted to reiterate again, and we talked about how we don't have a sales tax measure. So this is really our only other big pot of operating money. And other counties allocate 100% of this money to mass transit. They don't use it to fund studies. They don't use it to fund mobility programs. But that's a choice we've made in this county to date. Whoops. And then lastly, the unknowns we're dealing with in future budgeting. I think all of you know, there's a regional tax measure this November. Does not directly affect Solano County. However, if that measure fails, it very much could impact our funding because everybody's going to be fighting for dollars. RM3 future allocations. MTC has committed that we'll get the same amount of money, it was only $1 million. We're going to get that again next year. We don't know ongoing how much they plan to allocate to us, and that we use that for Solano Express. They did say they are working on the parameters now, and it sounded to me like they were going to be putting the guidelines out prior to the tax measure. So I guess we'll wait to be seen. And then state transit assistance funds, again, this big pot of money that we've all relied on for operations and for other things is declining because of state diesel taxes. And we're looking at, I believe last year, the pot went down, I think $900 to $1 million. And this year it's also lower than it was last year. And I'll bring more information on that when I bring the 10-year forecast in a couple of weeks. Yeah, this is where we're at, and I'm happy to answer any questions, or you could digest and we can talk in 2 weeks when we do the 10-year forecast.
Yeah, thank you so much. Since we're having the conversation in a couple weeks, I'll probably save most of my comments. We will have to probably maybe use our subcommittee to talk about Solano Express and get ahead of that. And I see Councilmember Gordon. Go ahead.
Thank you. May I ask if you can, Bill, make sure that we kind of have this in advance so in case we can ask questions in between and you can be able to have it available to us when we come back in 2 weeks?
I'm sorry, did you want the materials in advance?
Yes,
Yeah.
so that way we
Yes.
can ask some questions in advance.
Yes, it should be in your, the forecast should be in your packet with a full report that you can read
thank
before.
you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
All right, not seeing any other comments from the board. Do we have any public comments on this item? All right, with that, we'll close the item and move on to our final discussion item, which is our system performance report, item 9C. And I believe, Ronald Freeman here, already ready to go at the table to provide a presentation. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
All right, good afternoon. We're going to discuss trips, hours, and ridership and passenger metrics. So here we're covering ridership by route. In Q2 of this fiscal year, a handful of local routes have seen a decline, such as routes 3, 5, and 7A. Looking at the school trippers, although the Route 17 has also been experiencing a decline in ridership in Q2, routes 15 and 38 have been experiencing significant increase in ridership both Q1 and Q2. Our team is aware that the 17 is declining, and we're investigating further into the data to understand what's happening. Here, we're covering ridership by route. In quarter two of this fiscal year, the blue and red lines have seen a decrease in ridership compared to last fiscal year. As previously mentioned, the slight decrease has kept our ridership relatively flat compared to last year at a decrease of 0.3%, which is about 380 riders. Here we have ridership year-to-date by mode. Although we have seen a decline on some routes in quarter two, ridership year-to-date is still trending higher than last fiscal year. Comparing quarter two across last and current fiscal year, ridership is up by 4, 3, and 10% for local, school, express, and ADA respectively. Here we're talking about trending ridership by mode. Local ridership for quarter two this fiscal year is trending higher compared to last fiscal year and also follows the same seasonable trend with a decrease from October to November. December also saw a 7% increase in ridership compared to last fiscal year, where it actually saw a slight decrease from November to December. Trending ridership for school. School ridership for quarter two this fiscal year is trending higher compared to last fiscal year in the months of October and December. However, there is a significant decrease in November, which can be attributed to the Route 17 that has seen a significant decline in ridership, while Routes 15 and 38 have seen significant increases. As previously mentioned, we are continuing to investigate this data and to see where we can better optimize our services. And this is trending express route ridership. Express ridership for quarter two was trending slightly higher than last fiscal year for the months of October and November. December, however, is trending higher than last fiscal year. Our team is investigating to understand why these decreases in ridership are, comparing them to last fiscal year. And our trending ADA ridership, ridership in quarter two has been performing significantly higher than last year, with an overall 10% in quarter two of this fiscal year compared to last fiscal year. And our quarterly productivity, quarter two productivity decreased across local, school, and express, while ADA had a slight increase. The decrease in productivity, particularly for the local and express routes, is about 1%. This can be attributed to an improved adjustment to ridership from the Federal Transit Administration, which is also known as FTA, as revenue hours has stayed the same and ridership being down slightly in October and November due to rainstorms. As noted in the beginning of this presentation, the 17 took a decrease in ridership, which affects the overall productivity. While this is a dip, this is very productive service, with our school tripper being the most productive service we run, especially in Benicia. We are exploring changes in city demographics and possible changes in neighborhood where students live and use the bus. We'll be reaching out to the school district for assistance with analysis. A great standard of measurement for local fixed route is 12 passengers per revenue hour, and for paratransit is 2 passengers per revenue hour. Express quarterly productivity. So here's our quarter two express productivity. It's measured as passengers per revenue hour, and load is the maximum amount of passengers per round trip for route in quarter two. Ideally, productivity numbers would be a lot higher, with only one route meets the 12 passenger standard, and we hope that with revisions to the express network and the upcoming COA, we will see a significant increase in productivity. Quarter two missed trips as a percentage of the almost 35,000 scheduled trips in quarter two, 123 were missed, 92 on local, 1 school, 30 on express, and we didn't have any in ADA. This accounts for about 0.35 of missed trips this quarter. And for local missed trips, we're looking closer into missed trips by routes. We can see that the local routes as a whole decreased by 393 trips, which is an 81% improvement from quarter two last year. Missed trips by route for express routes, we can see that missed trips as a whole decreased by 161 trips, which is an 84% improvement from quarter two last year. And now we're going to talk about on-time performance, verified complaints, and customer service. So we have trending punctuality. As of January 2026, the average on-time performance this quarter was 71% for local, 72% for express, and 76% for ADA. We have adjusted some time points in the January service change, and we are seeing an increase in OTP already for quarter 3. So time points are scheduled points in, like if you read a bus schedule, there's a time point like at a specific location. We call that a time point. If a bus is supposed to be at a location at 5:26, that would be the time point for that bus as referenced in the schedule, or if you're referencing transit apps. So that's what a time point is, and that's how our OTP is measured. Customer service. Our call center is operated by 5 customer service representatives at a time, and in quarter 2, we received approximately 11,000 calls with an average of 120 calls a day. On average, customer service answers calls in 9 seconds, and the average hold time for customers is around 1 minute and 24 seconds. Overall, it takes about 2 minutes for customer service representatives to handle a call. So just some additional information just for industry benchmark for customer service, and this is not limited to transit, this is just in general for customer service call centers. The average hold time is usually around 2 minutes and 12 seconds. So we're at 121 and 124, so I mean, we're well below that, so we're doing pretty well. And for the 80-20 rule for customer service, it goes by answering calls, 80% of the incoming calls within 20 seconds, and we're answering well below that. And so as you can see, our customer service center is doing very well. And why do I have training? Yeah. Yeah, it's trending complaints. Well, interesting. Well, I'm going to talk about trending complaints. Unfortunately, you don't have the slide. Trending verified complaints. These are the verified complaints. And verified complaints are complaints that we identify by evidence in data in our video cameras. So for July, we have 41. August was 33. September was 32. October was 41. November was 34, and December was 28. So it fluctuates up and down. I mean, it just depends on the season. A lot of times, summertime, it could be due to traffic. We get a lot of complaints if the buses are late. And there's complaints that could be for buses running early, or it could be behavioral issues, AC issues, bus not having enough AC or heat, or there could be some maintenance complaints. It just depends on the conditions or the time of year for the complaints. We kind of see kind of a cycle of certain type of complaints during certain times of the year. And now we'll talk about safety. So safety here, we have year to date, we have 25 total accidents compared to 39 from all of last fiscal year. And for preventable, which means that it was an accident that our operators are trained to drive vehicles at an advanced rate or advanced skills than a regular driver, because they're commercial vehicle operators. So with that being said, there's a higher standard in judgment when it comes to defensive driving and actually assessing whether they're at fault or not. So, for example, if me and you get in an accident, we're driving our regular car and we run a red light, or let's say, for example, we go through an intersection and we get hit by a car that's crossing traffic, and we could have prevented that accident. And although we had the right of way, we had the green light, but another car come through the intersection and hit us, broadside us. As a regular driver with a non-commercial driver's license, you're not driving commercially, it'd be considered as not preventable on your end. But for a bus driver, if there was some way that they could have prevented that accident by scanning the intersections, because that's something that they were trained to do, then that would be considered a preventable accident, although they went through the light and their light was green. So I'll just kind of give you just a picture of what that means. And just a snapshot of years of service. I know this has been a question that has been asked in the past about the years of service of operators that have had preventable accidents. 2 of them were just under a year of service. We had 2 that was 1 year or more. Actually, I'm sorry, 3 that were 1 year or more. We had 2 that were 3 years or more. We had 1 that was 10 years, 1 16 years, and 2 that were 24 years. All were fixed object accidents except for 2 that were in intersections. Any questions?
Thank you very much for all that info. I've seen lights come on, so we'll start with Mayor Young.
Thank you, Ronald. Well, obviously, the good news from my perspective is the big reduction in missed trips. That was a significant thing that came up at the STA board over and over again, and I think we've, certainly made huge strides in that. What accounts for the big drop every year in October and November? And that it seemed to be true for both Solano Express and the local.
What accounts for the big drop?
The big drop. There was a big drop in ridership.
Or ridership.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those are times when the holidays start coming up. So, I mean, it could be that trend of just holidays that could be impacting it. It could be weather as well. Sometimes people just don't want to go out in the rain to go catch a bus.
But October, November, it wasn't really raining that much compared to the.
Well, November had.
Oh, this year we actually had, I think it was October, right? Yeah, there was 2 significant rainstorms in October this year. We actually went back and Googled it because we were looking at the same thing. Because normally ridership's pretty high in October because there's no holidays. But there were 2 big atmospheric rivers. We probably already forgot about it.
And that stops people from going to work, or going to Solano
That'll
Express?
prevent people from catching a bus. I know there are days of rain, I wouldn't want to go out and catch the bus or go catch BART.
Okay. I noticed that in the ridership numbers, it's almost the same numbers of rides on Solano Express as it is versus local. Almost like within 1,000 rides. Are our costs also comparable? I realize the revenue is going to be different. You're going to make more money on Solano Express, but our costs, if we're doing the same number of rides, are our costs relatively comparable on Solano Express versus local?
Yeah, you mean our cost per hour or total?
Well, yeah, because obviously you're going to spend more on gas and some other things.
Interestingly enough, we're going to have a presentation on this where I break it down a little more next meeting. But in general, what we do is mostly it is pretty split. I think our budget is pretty close to split. The biggest difference is vehicle maintenance costs are allocated based on the miles the bus runs. And so obviously Solano Express runs a lot more miles than our local. So a higher percentage of that particular cost goes to Solano Express. But everything else is split mostly based on revenue hours, and that's pretty split between local and
Okay. One of the things you mentioned is that there's a few of the local lines that are down relatively significantly in terms of ridership. Is that something, and you said you're going to be looking at causes. Is that something that we might roll into the COA in terms of how often we stop or where we stop and that kind of thing to address this?
Yeah, all of these factors have been, considered through the COA process. So this is something that we're looking at as well.
Okay. The customer service calls. I know STA also has a customer service function. Is there overlap that's happening where they are taking calls, we're taking calls? I mean, did they take calls for Solano Express? Is there duplication, I guess, is where my question is. And it's a question that's come up at STA.
There may be a little bit of duplication, but they handle the mobility center.
Right.
So they answer calls about their programs. At one time, we used to forward calls to them, but we've stopped doing that.
And vice versa, if they get a call about when does a bus run, do they try to answer that, or does it switch over to us?
No, they don't switch to us, but we used to switch to them. So they could do route planning and stuff, but they don't do that anymore. So they may be getting some of our calls, but
But a route planning call going to STA,
there could be, but we do that too.
I know, I'm just wondering if there is an arrangement where automatically it ought to kick to us if it's a bus-related call.
No, I don't know if they have the capabilities of doing that, but we could certainly ask.
Okay, and then the one thing that, Ron, that you talked, that seemed weird on this preventable accident thing. And the example you gave of a bus going into an intersection on the green light, having the right-of-way, and somebody running a red light and hitting them, under what circumstance should that be considered the driver's fault? I mean, you're saying it's preventable, but it doesn't seem like that's a preventable accident if it's caused by a driver running a red light.
So as a bus driver, you're trained to scan for an intersection. So you're trained to check your mirrors every 5 to 8 seconds. And so during that process, when you're approaching an intersection, when you're on the gas, you have to release the throttle, and then you cover your brake as you're going through a stale green light. And you're covering your brake, and while you're covering your brake, you're not actually pressing on the actual service brake, but you're covering it just in case something pops up. So if a car is coming from your right side that appears about to run that red light, your foot is already on the brake, and you're already catching it before it happens, and you're hitting the brakes. Now, if you've hit the brakes and you hit the car anyway, then it's a different scenario. Now it's not preventable because you did all you could to stop and prevent that accident.
Because it seems that there ought to be some way to differentiate between, somebody hitting a parked car or whatever, where it's clearly the driver's fault, and this circumstance where, you're trying to stop, but maybe you can't, or you don't hit the brakes soon enough. It seems unduly harsh.
Understood, but that's just a standard, and this is an industry standard because commercial vehicle drivers, they have a higher level of driving skills and training that exceeds just the basic driver license, licensed driver.
Yeah.
Yeah, we only had 2 in the intersection, but just in generally speaking, commercial vehicle drivers, especially bus drivers, there's a higher level of training and expectations on how to manage and drive on the road.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for sharing that. A quick follow-up question, because I had a similar reaction to that. That wouldn't change who is determined at fault for insurance purposes, right? So we're measuring at a higher standard.
Right.
But that's not a liability if it was considered preventable, but we were not at fault.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So like, for example, if Vallejo PD comes and investigate, or CHP comes and investigate the situation, it's obviously going to be the person that ran the red light that's at fault, that's going to be on paper. But internally, during the investigative process, that operator that could have prevented that accident will be
there could be some
held
education or
accountable
training
and
for the driver.
retraining and all that, the whole process is,
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. All right, Mayor Hernandez.
Yes, 2 things. First of all, the local and express missed trips from Q2 of last year to Q2 of this year, OMG, like 180, just 100% grateful for all the improvements. I did want to ask, they're still slightly higher on Route 3 for local and the red line for express. Are we seeing any trends of like what's leading to some of those issues still?
Well, Route 3 has 30-minute increments, so if something happens, like a delay with a bus or any type of delay to that route that our contractor might experience with a passenger issue or an accident or a driver running late, it's likely going to be a missed trip just because the increments are so short, rather than most of our other routes are, hour headways.
Okay, thank you. I mean, it's helpful to start understanding and start digging into a little bit. I'll be frank, I believe I recall around this time last year I was asking, I think we need an RFP to look for another vendor, and I do not feel that way at all at this time. I just want to put that on the record as well. The other piece, I am curious around when you talked about the Express quarterly productivity slide. You stated that the productivity, it's 12 riders per hour?
Per revenue hour.
Per revenue hour. My question is 12 riders per revenue hour our average, or is that an industry?
It's a standard.
It's benchmark? Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to understand where we're measuring up to what. So it's an industry benchmark, and these numbers are reflective to where we are to that. Okay, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you so much. My colleague asked a question regarding Bus 3. I'm going to ask about that. I'm extremely happy because likewise the same. I was like, I just came on, and for me to see the numbers high last year, I'm like, we need to look for somebody, but we did get somebody new. So that, and we can see the partnership is real. I do want to let you know from my observation, I do see where the bus will actually change their route, because, I live there, so I see everything. And I do see people waiting still. So I hope that although that number is opposite, actually it's 92 versus 29, so that's good. But hope we can look into more investigation in that, but kudos for that. I do want to ask a question. I heard you say something about the school ridership dropping. And maybe this could be to you, Director, do you believe with the school closures that may have a big effect? And also too, for example, 2024, 2025, we had multiple schools closed, including, especially since COVID, we have had over 14 schools closed since 20. And right now, 2025 to 2026, we're having 3 more. In my particular district, we had 4 schools closed. Are you concerned about that?
No, and I'll tell you why, Mandy, it's a timely question. Mandy just met with the Vallejo School District this week, and she could explain how we're working with the school district.
Hi, everyone. The the system performance report, the school ridership that we're seeing dropping is on the Benicia Route 17. So it's really a Benicia school district ridership dropping. The school ridership in Vallejo is growing every month. The majority of that growth that you saw in Beth's report is Vallejo school ridership. I did just meet, and I have met twice with the Vallejo School District. Our second meeting was this Monday. I was saving that for the other March board meeting. But we are redesigning the Route 38 to meet the needs of the students and the school closures so that we're capturing on the new Route 38 that will go live in August, the new lining of the school district and making sure that that route picks up and supports where the local system is changing and getting those kids to school. And they were very pleased with that meeting. They were very pleased with the routing and the timing that we were able to do with that little tiny pot of money for the school tripper. I was going to request, and if you guys support that, to have them come to one of our board meetings and talk about our collaboration and what the route that we're doing and what they're doing, and we're working together. We'll be meeting with the school district and talking about, they're doing public meetings at the schools that are closing, and I'll be attending and doing kind of like trip planning. Here's where you live now, here's how do you get to school, here's how you're going to get to school next year, and helping parents and students, new trip planning to making sure that they can all get to school. Really pleased with that collaboration and the way the meeting went earlier this week. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I'll wait for that report, because for me, it is so concerning to see a lot of our young kids already walking from South Vallejo. We're talking about over by Magazine and Porter all the way to Hogan Middle School, because they once was going to Franklin.
Right.
And by the time they get to school via bus, they're extremely late.
Yeah.
So they walk to school because they have to trade bus 3 to whatever bus 8, I believe, right? Or
That's correct, yeah. That was one of the leading drivers for changing the Route 3 to connect to Springs Road and get that South Vallejo community up to Hogan, and then give them an opportunity to transfer if they want to continue on to Jesse Bethel or Wardlaw, depending on what your age group is. When it comes to the Benicia School District and that Route 17 ridership, that route touches the east side of town and downtown. So we're looking at maybe the demographics of the town have changed. I personally live in the east side of town, and my boys are the only ones that we live in the neighborhood. So we're looking at and hoping to work with the school district to see where people are living and how they're getting to school, and maybe rerouting that Route 17 or working with the 15 to see if there's a neighborhood that we're currently not touching that maybe didn't need transit, that now is a community of students that were maybe young and didn't use transit, but now they're middle schoolers, high schoolers, that we could use that opportunity to get them to school and slow down that traffic, especially on Southampton.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I had a couple of the same comments about November, the reason for the dip. I did see a little bit of, I noted the increase in the ridership on the 82, which is a bit of a bummer because we're going to be discontinuing that. And I'm curious have we started the marketing or the sort of outreach to riders of those routes that are going to be changed? And I think most of us may have gotten an email from one particularly passionate 82 rider, but just in general, letting folks know what their other options are and kind of expressing our regret that we're not able to continue that service.
Yes, so the next March board meeting, I have a report about our outreach and marketing efforts, and it really kicks off April 1st, and will be a very similar outreach and public marketing effort that you saw with the public comment period. A lot of hours out in the community, out on the buses, at the transit centers, making sure everyone is aware of that. And we have a lot of cool tools that the riders are going to be able to use to see how they use transit now, and how, with the changes in the system-wide redesign, how they'll use transit going forward. So 2 weeks.
Thank you, appreciate it. And then I was gonna, during the board comments, mention the school closures, and this came up at our 2x2 with the city and the school district, and it had sounded from the superintendent that they were optimistic about being able to work with SolTrans. So just, I wanted to thank you for your work and having that meeting. Really glad to hear that it went well. I think it's a great idea for them to come here. I think it would be wonderful as well if someone from SolTrans could come to a 2x2 or a VCUSD board meeting at some point soon. I know we did that last year, I think.
Yes,
when we
yeah, we did.
did a very similar process with the COA. So yeah, thank you for doing that work. And I'll check for public comment on this item. And if we don't have any, I think we can go ahead and close it out. Thank you for the update, and thank you to everybody. I know you all have worked really hard over the past year on the missed trips data. That did not happen by accident. That was a lot of hard work by our contractor and our staff. So thank you all for that. With that, we are on to item 10A. We've got our state legislative report as a non-discussion item, so just report it on in the packet. Do you want to just see if any board members want to pull the item for discussion? And I'm not seeing anyone, and want to just make sure if any members of the public have any comment on that item. Seeing none, we will leave that discussion item as is in our packets, and we will move on to item 11, our board comments. Do any board members wish to comment this evening? Mayor Hernandez.
Yes, I do. It's not on this, but I do want, on this agenda, but I do want to provide a quick update on the STA SolTrans Subcommittee, because this, a part of this update will be provided to STA next week, and then we'll have a new report after that. But just to bring everyone who's not on the STA board up to speed, this Monday, the subcommittee met for the third time, and we've been progressing over time. Some of the direction that's been given, just to update you all, is we realized at the last STA board meeting that we were a little too late to be able to fund the extension of the Blue Line to implement for this next fiscal year and all the schedule changes. So the STA board gave direction for the subcommittee to look at van pool options to meet that ask of going Blue Line or extending access to Memorial Union and Davis. For that, there was an ad hoc committee created that included STA staff plus the city of Vacaville and the city of Dixon, who that would be participating in what that would look like through their communities. They provided recommendations to the subcommittee on Monday. The subcommittee kind of went through them and identified what works, what doesn't, and came up with a lot of new questions, I would say. Many new questions about what this would mean. Direction was given on Monday to the members who are helping with specific items is for staff from both SolTrans and STA to work specifically on the cost-sharing agreement of what that would look like for the Solana Express, specifically the cost per hour. We wanted to get a better comparison, so what we saw today is part of that discussion, and to have a better understanding of what the real costs are to do the van pool service, and to have the STA board be provided that information for them to give more direction about the next steps. So we anticipate potentially maybe another subcommittee meeting in the future. I don't know, but the STA board will kind of give direction on that. I just don't want to have this board not also receive some of those updates. And so if I missed anything, I would like to see if there's anything that anybody else wishes to add.
I think that covers it. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. I'm not seeing any other comments from the board. So with that, we will move to adjournment. Our next meeting is scheduled just in a couple weeks, Thursday, March 19th at 3:30 p.m., and we will adjourn today at 4:46 p.m.